rallies. On Friday night, pure chaos after Trump canceled his appearance in Chicago. In a moment, we'll speak to former GOP presidential candidate Carly Fiorina, but let's start with NBC's Hallie Jackson in Dayton, Ohio, where a Trump rally will be happening a little bit later today. Hallie, good morning.
Hey there, Craig. Good morning. And right now, all indications are that rally will move forward. You can see people have been lining up. Some got here at 1 a.m. for Donald Trump's first event since canceling that rally in Chicago. That's where 5 people were arrested. Trump now tweeting this morning about, quote, the organized group of people, many of them thugs, who shut down our First Amendment rights in Chicago, saying they've totally energized America. Pandemonium in a crowd packed with protesters, days of rising tension reaching a boiling point.
Tonight's rally will be postponed until another day.
The chaos in Chicago spilling out into the streets. Police physically separating Trump's protesters from his supporters. One arguing with demonstrators, raising her hand in a salute. Elsewhere, cameras captured a bloodied police officer. Trump on MSNBC explaining why he called off the event.
I don't want to see anybody get hurt. I think it was the right thing to do under the circumstances.
How are they going to react to these pictures when they go to vote?
2 people told me that are experts say this increases the vote for Trump.
His campaign says it postponed the rally after meeting with law enforcement, but Chicago police point to the 100 extra officers who'd been called in.
We were confident that we had the proper amount of resources dedicated to the event, and we relayed that information to Mr. Trump and the campaign office.
Trump did not cancel a rally earlier in the day in St. Louis, interrupted repeatedly by demonstrators there. One led away bloody. 32 people arrested.
Well, I certainly don't incite violence, and I don't condone violence.
But just last month,
I'd like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you.
Trump facing fire for his comments to protesters, a regular presence at his rallies. His rivals now arguing he's the one who should set the tone.
There's only one presidential candidate who has violence at their events.
Any campaign responsibility starts at the top. Any candidate is responsible for the culture of the campaign.
Every one of Trump's competitors, Republican and Democrat, has commented on what happened overnight in Chicago. John Kasich, for example, saying that the seeds of division Donald Trump has been sowing are now bearing fruit. And in his words, it was ugly. Trump says the nation itself is divided. He's questioning freedom of speech, guys, this morning, again under fire for his tone on the campaign trail.
Hallie Jackson for us in Ohio this morning. Hallie, thank you.
Ali Vitale is an NBC News campaign embed who was at the rally last night. Ali, good morning. We've seen all these escalating tensions now really building, especially over the past week. So the question this morning for a lot of people was whether or not this came as a surprise. Since you've been at so many of these events, was it a surprise?
What we've been seeing over the past few weeks is that tensions have been much higher. I point to one rally in New Orleans just before that primary on Tuesday. He was there on Monday night, and there were a lot of protesters in the crowd. But it's not just the frequency and the number of the protesters, but the way in which Trump supporters have been acting towards them. A lot of people, and what Hallie was just talking about, is that Trump's rhetoric might embolden them. And this has been simmering over the past few weeks, obviously boiling over last night. But if you let me set the stage for you a little bit, in the arena last night, across the ground floor, there were multiple sections that were just filled with protesters ready to disrupt, and with the goal of disrupting and even canceling this rally, getting Trump to say that he won't be here in downtown Chicago. Obviously, when that announcement was made, there were clashes between protesters and supporters. That then obviously continued out onto the street. And so this tension has been here. It's been simmering around the edges of these rallies for weeks now. So for those of us who have been covering the campaign for this time, it's not entirely surprising as much as it is disheartening to see finally spilling over. Much of it having to do with protesters and supporters saying that they've been emboldened by Trump's own rhetoric on the issue.
So you say not entirely surprising, but based on some of the earlier responses, in some ways it almost sounded from the campaign like it had come as a surprise. Is that the sense that you get from the folks you're speaking with there?
Well, sources had told me in the days leading up to this rally that they were expecting a large amount of protesters. And I know that there were activist groups that were active on social media saying that they planned to be here in large numbers. The entire idea that there would be protesters at a Trump event is nothing new. It's something that's kind of become the bedrock of this campaign, something that many of us on the ground expect to see almost daily when we're at these rallies. And it's something that we've surely seen an uptick in recent days. But the tensions here have been spilling over. I feel as though the Trump supporters that I talk to just feel further emboldened by the more states that vote for him and the more states that he seems to win, the more confident his rhetoric becomes. And thusly, his supporters feel that confidence. And it translates, I think, into when they feel their ideology and their ideas are being challenged by protesters on the ground. They tell me that they want to defend their candidate, that it's not his fault that these protesters come out, and that they're doing what they think is right in terms of defending the ideas that they think are the right path for America and that he espouses in their minds. So a lot of these supporters feel like